A lot of people struggle to get in shape. A lot of people struggle to lose body fat. And then when you speak to them, their hormones are so out of balance. They just need that support to get their diet in the right place. Get their sleep in a good place, get their stress managed. A lot of people I find are either like overtraining or undertraining. Or they're eating too much, or they're eating too little, or they're just not consistent enough.
Obviously, I always say the holistic side of things and the lifestyle side of things is really how you manage and heal skin.
When I got diagnosed, there was literally no support. So it was literally, you're going to have to eat less. You're going to have to exercise more than the usual person if you want to be able to lose weight and be able to control your symptoms. And I knew it wasn't right. Like, I knew there was more to it.
Hello and welcome to Treatment Room Conversations, the Skin and Wellbeing podcast. I'm Tamrin and I am your host. I'm a skin specialist based in the UK and can't wait to share some really insightful conversations with you. Hello and welcome back to Treatment Room Conversations. It has been quite a long time since I filmed one of these, and I thought, what better time to do it than when I am 7.5 months pregnant? So today I am filming an episode with the lovely Marsha, who is one of my clients and has been for the past maybe 4 years, I want to say. She's a qualified PT and level 4 nutritionist, and she specialises in online coaching. To give a little bit of background, our paths crossed when it was lockdown. So I want to say 2020. And Marsha came to me because she was struggling with her skin and primarily just lots of hormonal breakouts. And at that point, I couldn't do much other than help her with some product advice, which was really effective to a certain extent. Would you agree? I feel like actually it did really help initially to clear up your skin.
Literally, in the first few weeks, like that is when I noticed the most changes, just from, I think it was Medicate we went on.
We
at
did,
the start.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was quite a basic, wasn't it? Quite a basic regime.
Yeah, just a basic regime. Although I did introduce like retinols and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Towards the end, I got quite obsessed with it.
Yeah, that's it. You start seeing results and you just want to keep seeing more, don't you?
Exactly. But yeah, I think unless I actually got to the root of it, I wouldn't have completely cleared my acne.
Absolutely. And that's what we are discussing today. We're going to be talking about PCOS, Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. We're going to be talking about diagnosis of that. We're going to be talking about how fitness plays a role, how nutrition plays a role, and basically just a little bit about your journey to diagnosis and things like that. So obviously at the point when I met you, we just focused solely on skincare. I didn't know anything about the PCOS. So how did you get diagnosed with it, and what kind of made you think? I mean, the common symptoms that I see in clients is generally irregularity with cycles. This is something I delve into a lot more with clients now, but I think back then wasn't necessarily. No. Unwanted excess facial hair is something that some people struggle with depending on the type of PCOS they have.
Yeah.
Short cycles and breakouts, face and body. So I'm guessing the breakouts were a sign, but did you feel like you had anything else that was indicating?
So basically I've been on contraception. Well, I was on contraception from the age of like 17, 18, just for cycles, because I didn't actually get a period until I was 15.
Okay.
Which is another sign.
Yes.
So
a little bit later cycles, I guess.
A very late cycle, late starting, late puberty, like everything. And then obviously from being on it for so many years, it masks all the symptoms. And a lot of people are finding, unless they come off of it, they're not actually finding out that they've got it. So obviously I've been on it, was on it for years, came off of it, was off it about a year. It took about a year for it to all to start to show. But one of the main things was like not having any cycle.
Yeah.
Wasn't underway, anything like that, like nothing alarming as to say why I shouldn't be getting a cycle. So went to the doctors and they said to me, this doesn't seem quite right. Let's just check you out for PCOS.
Yeah.
But I had been to the doctors before, years ago, about my cycles, because they'd always been quite irregular.
Yeah.
Even before I went on the pill. So Yeah, I think it's been, obviously some PCOS is something that you get, for years and years and years, prior to going on the pill. So yeah, basically the diagnosis part of it was going through a hormone blood panel test.
Yeah.
So that's the initial part that you get done. The second part is an ultrasound scan, internal and external.
Yeah, to look at the ovaries.
So just to check for cysts in the ovaries. And it's normally 12 plus.
Yes.
And I definitely had that.
Yes, yeah.
So and they actually found that what's quite interesting is because my cycles were, once I got my PCOS under control, they was around 55 to 56 days.
Okay.
Which shows that one is working and one's not.
One's not, yeah.
So they were long cycles.
Mainly one ovary, not
yeah,
the other
it's
so
affecting
much.
One ovary, definitely.
Yeah. It's something I see so commonly in clinic, and it's a really difficult thing to touch upon because sometimes when people have some of the symptoms, the excess facial hair, or they're telling me that, their cycles are really long, hard to break the news that you think maybe they have got something going on. But your diagnosis sounds great in terms of you had that hormonal panel straight away.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite sad that a lot of the time I have to refer my clients to private blood tests to kind of get the answers that
can take a long time.
You actually, got quite forthcomingly, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's so common. And like you say, it's only when people come off of the pill. Sometimes I get clients that struggle a bit with their skin whilst they're on the pill, and I'm like, you kind of need to come off to see what your body's doing naturally.
Yeah, definitely.
But I always say things don't happen by accident. So usually the skin is like a really strong indicator. It's your warning light. It's telling you something's not right, and you kind of need to look further into it.
Definitely. I mean, when I was not having cycles, that's when the skin was the worst. So it was so bad.
It was kind of craving that hormone release, I think. And I think that's the thing, like we forget that actually that hormone release is so important as women to have. And it's how your body functions healthily. And when it's being completely suppressed or, there's something going on, that's not necessarily healthy.
And when I was diagnosed, basically, so I had the tests, so I had the blood test, which come back normal, weirdly.
Yeah, it often does, unless...
It does.
It depends where they check in your cycle. Generally, like you need to do the tests like day 1 to 5.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just do a random blood test, and then I get clients come back and they're like, "Oh no, my bloods have come back fine." I'm like, "When did they test them?"
Yeah. What day has to be?
The more you become educated, the more you can start asking questions about what they're doing, essentially.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because I had them done a couple of years ago just for my bodybuilding as well, just to see whereabouts it was. And my testosterone was off the scale.
Really?
Like 1.9, and it's meant to be between, I think, 0.2 to 1.6.
Yeah.
So it was off the scale, and that was done at peak ovulation time as well.
Wow.
So it just shows how sometimes it is worth getting that private one done.
It is. And I think for the sake of, I think the one I refer most clients to is about £80-90. So £80-90 to then have something quite solid to then go to your doctor and say, can we now do a scan? Because I'm pretty convinced this is what this means.
Yeah.
And I've had it with a lot of clients where it's actually then come back that there is something going on, and you just would rather know about it and understand what's going on with your body.
Yeah. And you forget like 1 in 10 people have this.
Yep. Yeah,
so
it's really
so common.
Yeah, really, really common. So obviously when you made your career change, which has all happened in the time since I've known you, and you've, delved into nutrition, you've delved into exercise. Obviously, I always say the holistic side of things and the lifestyle side of things is really how you manage and heal skin.
Yeah.
Because it is all part of the bigger picture. But what exercise do you feel that nutrition and exercise has played in actually making an effective difference to your skin?
Yeah. So when I got diagnosed, there was literally no support. So it was literally, you're going to have to eat less. You're going to have to exercise more than the usual person if you want to be able to lose weight and be able to control your symptoms. And I knew it wasn't right. Like I knew there was more to it. So I went and got all the books,
Yeah.
Like PCOS diet, insulin resistance diet.
Yeah.
And I did lots and lots of research online.
Yeah.
And I found out like what works for me. So it's what works for you. But the most important thing is balancing your sugars, like your blood sugar management. So through regular meals, meal timings, whole food sources, nutrient dense foods, plenty of fats in your diet. Like I cannot stress the importance. Like the amount of people I speak to that like survive on a coffee.
I know.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And then they'll just pick at things, but like they're struggling hormonally or, they can't lose weight, et cetera, et cetera. But getting that diet right is not only going to like support you hormonally, but it's also going to allow you to feel good as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that was a good part of it, like having my blood sugars managed, which kept like cortisol low, because one thing that does make it so much worse is high stress.
Yeah.
Cortisol.
It's very similar to, because I have endometriosis, it's very similar. I read again as soon as I was diagnosed, I got all of the books. I read into the best, diets and everything. And basically it's very, very much the same. Like cortisol is the worst thing for you.
Yeah.
Spikes in your blood sugar. And that's why I often say things like fasting can be not the best thing in the world. People will
I agree.
starve themselves and kind of like live off coffee and things. And I'm like, the problem is you're going to get the biggest blood sugar spike. And if you have a hormonal condition, it might be fine for somebody who hasn't. But if you have a hormonal condition, that's not a good thing.
I found fasting for me was actually like counterproductive because if I went too long, that's where my blood sugars would dip.
Yeah.
And then the more dips that you get, the more unstable your hormones are.
Yeah.
To begin with.
To be honest, I think I'm the same with fasting. My blood sugars, I feel like when they drop, they crash and I get shaky and irritable and can't function properly.
Yeah.
And that's why I think with knowing your body, knowing your health, you do have to know what's right for you.
Yeah.
And you also have to experiment with it, don't you?
But some people can deal with like a lot of carbohydrates, for example. Some people can't.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is literally just about finding what's best for you.
Yeah.
I was told to have low carbs, but it just wasn't the case. It just wasn't the case. As long as I paired like carbs with like some fats, protein, just so it's more of a slow release.
Yeah.
I think if you're having if you have PCOS and you're trying to get your symptoms under control and you're having like a massive bowl of pasta.
Yes.
And that's it. You're just asking for trouble.
Yeah, it's not going to help, is it?
But just pairing different foods together, plenty of micros in there as well.
Yeah.
Just thinking about like how like colourful can you make your plate as well.
Absolutely. And I think you've touched upon it on your page. Like obviously you post loads of useful information, not only about diet, nutrition with exercise, but also some bits on PCOS as well. And things like alcohol, things like that can be really triggering because of the high sugar content.
Yeah.
So I think it's like looking at everything, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And just simplifying everything, just going back to basics and just thinking, what can I control?
Yes.
Yeah. And it takes time. It took me like a year, if not more, to really get it under control.
Yes. And do you feel like, so with the exercise part, what have you found through exercise is best for PCOS, I would say?
Yeah, I mean, for my PCOS, I found that strength training was actually the best. When I built muscle, that's when my symptoms improved drastically.
Yeah.
When I was doing like HIIT and like high intensity, actually made my hormones worse because it was more like physiological stress on the body. And they say just to reduce, so it's like more low impact. And actually building muscle can have like a really positive effect on like your metabolism, which is great for PCOS, and being able to lose weight as well. So yeah, I think that strength training, lowering the intensity, focusing on building muscle alongside the correct diet was literally the key for me.
Yeah. A complete game changer for everything. Yeah, I think that's actually quite similar to endometriosis. I found that as much as I liked high intensity exercise, things like boxing and stuff like that, the physical stress on my body would mean that I would be in like pain after. Whereas actually just strength training and kind of going at your own pace seemed to me a lot better. So again, it is kind of just listening to your body, isn't it?
I think like the HIIT stuff has a place, like cardio definitely has a place. Like obviously it's benefits for heart health, fitness in general. But I think if that's all you're doing, I think it is quite high stress.
Yes.
And you'll feel the difference through strength training, I think.
Absolutely. And obviously we're now, well, about 4 years on from when I first met you, and your skin is nice and clear. Obviously you've got a good regime, you look after your skin. And do you feel like everything, it's been a combination of everything you've done that has kind of got you to this place?
Yeah. I think just the treatments from you and the skincare would have played a massive part. But like if I wasn't doing all the home stuff, all the diet stuff, if I was constantly feeding my body with sugar and like processed foods and things like that, I think it wouldn't have had the effect that it has today.
Yeah.
It's a whole part of it. Like there is obviously 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 different things that I've done to control it. And you just have to give it time, but also just getting that support as well.
Yeah. And I think it's ultimately, that is what I find with most of my clients that have the most success with their skin is it's the lifestyle changes alongside the treatments and the home care, which is why I always say it's not really one thing or the other. You can't just do one bit without the other because they're all relevant basically.
Yeah.
And I think that just really highlights it. Like you would have seen improvements, but whether you would have actually, got to where you are now, possibly not.
No.
And that's the thing that sometimes people don't realise. They think that they can just do one bit without the other, and it's often
it all plays a part.
Yeah. What's your view on supplements? Do you take any supplements at the moment?
Supplements, I take omega-3 and a vitamin D and just creatine.
Yeah. So you keep it quite simple with supplements, but you do supplement some things.
But I think that like diet is your main point of call when it comes to supplementation, unless you need to take something specific.
Yes.
Like iron or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think you can get most of it through your diet.
Yeah.
I mainly take the omega for PCOS, to be honest.
Yeah. It manages the inflammation and that hormone balance, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, and do you feel like the PCOS is well managed now? Do you feel like everything is calm?
Yeah, I think that I'm on now like a 56-day cycle. Yeah. So that's the best I can get it. It's the best I'm probably ever going to get it. But for me, like to have that rather than not having one for like 18 months.
Yeah.
Like just having a cycle is not just to have a period, actually shows like internal health.
Absolutely.
And for a female, looking at your later life as well.
It's essential, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah. I have some clients, won't have cycle for like a couple of years, and I'm like, that's not good.
No, because you have to think about like your bone
hormones.
Density, like osteoarthritis. It can affect all of those things.
Yeah. Important things that as women we're not necessarily educated on.
No.
I think it can be quite like, oh, no period's great, but if it is affecting you in other ways, then that's not good. That's not healthy. Yeah, definitely not. And in terms of sort of like, helping clients, do you find you come across many women who have hormonal conditions? Because obviously I do in my line of work. I meet lots of women. Do you feel like you find that's quite a common thing with exercise? And sometimes why people aren't necessarily seeing their results in the gym is because there is something else going on?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people struggle to get in shape. A lot of people struggle to lose body fat. And then when you speak to them, their hormones are so out of balance. But like I say, they just need that support to get their diet in the right place, get their sleep in a good place, get their stress managed, and just get training in the right place. A lot of people I find are either like overtraining or undertraining. Or they're eating too much, or they're eating too little, or they're just not consistent enough. So I think it's just getting the balance right for most people.
Yeah, it's finding the balance of everything, isn't it? And I do sort of notice from following your page that actually, I think, do you find a lot of people are under eating? Because I actually find that with clients. And like we say, for blood sugar to be stable, you actually need regular, meals, and you need a balance with your food. But do you find you get people who are just like surviving on biscuits and
Yeah,
and then
literally.
expecting to lose weight.
Like a coffee, a cup of tea, and then literally like a few biscuits, maybe some soup at lunch, and then just eating whatever they want in the evening.
Yeah.
And if you have a goal, like a physical goal or a health goal in mind, like it's just not going to cut it. Like we need to put the effort and the dedication into your diet, consistent movement, and just looking a little bit deeper, like, you know, and what works for like one client won't work for another, as you know.
No, yeah, it's all very individual, isn't it? And do you find that generally people's hormones then improve once they're doing everything?
Yeah, definitely. Like I've helped a client recently get her cycles back from under eating.
Amazing.
Which was so good. Literally within 2 months as well, which I was expecting it to take a lot longer.
Yeah. Really rewarding, isn't it? Like when you can help somebody in that way, because it's a big deal, isn't it? It's a big thing.
And when you can help people like not fear food as well. I think like obviously like the era that we come from was very much like shrink your body, eat less.
Yes. Yeah.
And fats are bad. They'll make you fat.
Yeah. No, we all need healthy fat, definitely.
There is so much more out there now.
Yeah, absolutely. So what advice would you give to somebody who is maybe struggling with PCOS? Would it be just like the balance of everything? What would you kind of say to them to try and balance things out?
It depends what type of PCOS they've got. So there's like 3 or 4 different types, but mainly they're going to be insulin resistant. So I guess it's just recognizing the symptoms, seeking help and advice. You can't always go it alone. It's not that easy. Yes, you might not get much support from your GP, but there's plenty of people you can reach out to.
And there's private tests and stuff like that, which are great as well.
Yeah, get like a blood panel done and actually push for those tests to be done, because once you know you've got it, then that you can do something about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, my advice would just be to really think about nutrition, be nice and consistent every day. Like you can't one day, be really good and then the next day not. Like it has to just be a game of dedication.
Yeah.
And just, staying consistent and just trusting the process. And like you will have some bad days. You'll have some really good days, but yeah, it just takes time.
Yeah. And I think that's the same with skin. Is your skin is an organ, so it's always changing and it's always reflecting what's going on inside. So that's why sometimes people get really stressed when they think that they're doing everything right and then they get a breakout. But it only takes one slight thing to tip the scales a bit, and our body, our skin is going to react to what's going on within our bodies. So it's one of those that every day is different, it's not going to be the same every day because things change.
And I guess like just making some small sacrifices as well. Like you say, it just takes one thing to tip it off the edge.
Yeah.
Like it could take a weekend of like drinking or like, something like that. So it's just making those small lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
And those sacrifices.
Feel like once you know that you've got something like that though, and you do have a bit of a binge weekend or you've had a bit too much sugar and then you do get breakout, I think it's okay because I understand why.
Yeah.
I think the biggest frustration is sometimes just not knowing, isn't it?
Yeah, just not knowing what's causing it.
Yeah, I think once you are educated and kind of know what's going on with your body, it just helps in general, doesn't it? And what do you think about sort of like hormonal management of PCOS? Because generally with the pill, most people go on the pill to manage PCOS. Do you think that's a good management or do you think the holistic is better?
This is controversial, like massively. I have like 2 schools of thought on this because yes, if you go on contraception, obviously you're putting synthetic hormones into your body. It's masking the symptoms. You're not having a natural cycle. So that's what you have to understand. You're not getting to the root cause of it. You'll never cure PCOS, but you will manage it.
Yeah.
And the best way for you to manage it is going to be coming off of those hormones.
Yeah.
And actually having a natural cycle.
Yeah.
As best as you can. So that's my thought on it. What worked for me was having like 4 or 5 years off of it. That was the best thing I could have done because I got to the root cause of it. I got to it the best, like managed it the best I could. But it's very individual. Like some people will find that they feel best on hormones. They will manage things better. Stress will be better as well. And it also depends on your like circumstances in life as well. Are you trying for a baby, for example? But yeah, I think it's very individual.
It is. I think a lot of people think that I'm really anti-contraceptive because of I'm not a huge fan of synthetic hormones and the fact that it can mask conditions.
Yeah.
For me personally, I prefer not to have synthetic hormones and just be natural, be in tune with my body. However, when I do get young clients who are struggling and actually they need relief from those kind of symptoms that they're getting and they're of an age where I just think it shouldn't really be destroying their life how it is. There is a place for contraceptive.
Depends on like the severity, I guess, of like the symptoms as well.
Yeah. And the thing is, with PCOS, and unless you take away an ovary, there isn't much you can do about it apart from trying that. And the holistic approach is the longer game. So
yeah,
I do always feel like, yes, that would be my personal preference, but it is each to their own. It is a decision that people have to make, isn't it, themselves?
Definitely.
And, it's hard to just say, no, don't do anything artificial because it just doesn't work for everyone, does it?
No.
Well, I feel like we have literally covered everything that I wanted to talk to you about. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure.
And hopefully it's going to help somebody listening to maybe take a different view of how to manage PCOS or even spot the signs of it or just to know where to start. So in summary, if you are listening to this podcast and you feel like anything that we have discussed might be relevant to you, these are pretty much the symptoms and things you should look out for. Marsha's going to go over those for you.
So if you're suffering with irregular periods or absence of a period, also known as amenorrhea, if you are struggling with weight gain or the ability to find it hard to lose body fat, if you're struggling with excess hair growth, if you're struggling with acne, hormonal acne, and just generally, feeling quite fatigued and just not having kind of a lot of energy there, then it could be PCOS that you've got. Those are the main symptoms to kind of look out for. And if this is the case, then your best point of call would be just getting in touch with your GP and they'll be able to advise you further.
Thank you for coming on. And
you're welcome.
Hopefully somebody takes something good away from this.